So the first long form thing I posted was on my blog, and the title of the piece was, I will drive. And I made an analogy. It was a COVID analogy. It was, if somebody told you, hey, Karen, listen, my grandmother is 99 years old and she cannot see a thing. And also sometimes she has like fainting spells. Anyways, she wants to drive around town tomorrow. So could you stay home? I'm trying to get all the other cars to stay off the road so that she can just go out there and be safe.
Oh my gosh.
You would go, call me crazy. Maybe grandma should stay home, right? So it was an analogy about why are we locking up healthy people? We don't lock up healthy people. That's not what we do. We never have. This is insane. And people were like, oh my God, you are block, unfriend. Yeah. You're dead to me. And I'm like, wait, literally all I've done is express rational thought. Yes, it doesn't align with what you're hearing on CNN, but it's a thought. We could have a conversation about it.
Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karen Anderson Abril here with my co-host,
Pastor Elliott Anderson.
And Love and Life is your place to hear conversations grounded in psych research, psychotherapy,
and biblical truth
to help us thrive in love and life. Elliott and I have been talking about trauma in our recent series, and it got me thinking about the thing that I'm always thinking about, which is COVID and the collective trauma we've all endured over the last 5 years. And since we're just at the 5-year mark of 2 weeks to flatten the curve and to stop the spread, I thought it would be a nice time to reflect and consider, again, the collective trauma that the entire world has gone through. I wanted to look up the term collective trauma to make sure I was addressing this concept correctly. And I found an article from Psychology Today's website that was dated March 5th, 2025. It was called What Collective Trauma Feels Like by Thomas Huddle, PhD, and Lori Schreider, Master's, MA. And they started the article with this quote: recent and ongoing events in the U.S. and throughout the world, unstable political leadership, natural disasters, armed conflicts, violence, and racism have a profound impact on our collective sense of well-being. Yeah, for sure. Also COVID, please. It's 5 years since, literally since March 5th. That's when you wrote this article. 5 years ago, this thing happened, which is still a thing and still impacting everyone. I just was a little surprised they didn't mention COVID at the jump. Now, they did address it later in the article, but I was already a little salty about that. They did provide a definition from a sociologist named Seth Abruchin, and his definition is, quote, collective trauma refers to the sudden, acute destruction of social infrastructure. The sudden, acute destruction of social infrastructure. And oh my, if that's the definition of collective trauma, we have certainly experienced and endured and continue to experience and endure collective trauma, which is why I wanted to punctuate and underscore this 5-year anniversary, because I'm not letting it go. It's not okay. Yes, mistakes were made, and also there were things that were not mistakes, that were intentional. And I will let our guest today flesh this out with me. Incredible woman, incredible author, incredible comedian, lots to say about Jenna. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I do want to give her bio, and we'll talk about later how I met her. But also someone who experienced the collective trauma by virtue of her sunny disposition. She has not let it decimate her soul, decimate her spirit. She's excited to continue to move forward with her writing and her work and her platform to elevate the concerns of people whose lives were dreadfully impacted. I mean, we all went through the trauma, as we've been talking about, but some people's lives, businesses were destroyed, people died, loved ones, they couldn't even see them in the hospital, so on and so forth. Jenna is not going to let it go either. And I'm so excited to kick off our series on the collective trauma of COVID with Jenna McCarthy. Let me tell you a little bit more about Jenna. Jenna McCarthy is an award-winning screenwriter, 2-time TEDx speaker, and the author of 20 books, including The War on Ivermectin with Dr. Pierre Kory. Formerly media trained and a natural on camera, Jenna has appeared on The Today Show, Better TV, and AOL's You've Got series. She served as an editor for Mademoiselle, 17, and Shape magazines, been kicked off Instagram twice, and her writing has appeared in more than 60 publications and been translated into multiple languages. Yankee Doodle Soup is the book we're going to talk about today, is her first anthology. Again, it's not hyperbolic. I don't think it is an outsized estimation of what we've been through to say that we've been through a collective trauma. I'm not over it, and I want to continue processing it because I know I'm not alone. And I'm excited that you're here to join me to speak with Jenna today about what we've been through and how to make sense of it all. My interview with Jenna McCarthy, author of Yankee Doodle Soup, right after this. A few years ago, I started having trouble falling asleep. And I started taking melatonin because I thought it was a natural way to try to relax myself, calm myself down, and go to sleep. But it turns out that as a hormone supplement, melatonin can disrupt our other hormones and we can build up an immunity to it. So when we started partnering with the wellness company, I was super excited to try their melatonin-free sleep aid called Restful Sleep. It includes passion flower, chamomile, valerian root, among other herbs and natural ways to help calm us down and get us ready to go to bed. I've been using it for a couple months now, and Restful Sleep helps my mind and body quiet themselves and ease into sleep. If you've ever had insomnia, you know how brutal it is. The wellness company's Restful Sleep can help. Head over to twc.health/lovelife and enter promo code LOVELIFE at checkout for 15% off your entire order. That's twc.health/lovelife and promo code LOVELIFE for 15% off your entire order. Jenna, welcome to the program. So glad to have you on.
Karen, I'm so excited.
So I want to just frame the beginning of the conversation with how I found you, met you, quote unquote, online on Substack in particular, because it started with the war on ivermectin, which I want to show you co-wrote with Dr. Pierre Kory. And for COVID dissidents, this will be, I think, a story that they walked in a very similar manner as you and I did, where it's March of 2020. By the way, happy 5-year anniversary of COVID. Yeah. So during that time, and again, I don't want to be redundant, but at the same time, maybe it is a good time to reflect on what the last 5 years have been like. And you know a little bit about our program, Love and Life. It's holistic, mind, body, spirit approach to relationship wellness, emotional well-being, psychological health, and all of these things have been captured to various degrees by all these other entities, which I'm sure we'll stumble upon. But 5 years ago, I think a lot of us turned on the TV because we were supposed to, and we watched all this information coming at us. And I remember distinctly feeling, and I'm guessing you did too, although I didn't know you way back then, like, who is going to give another opinion here? Like, by the way, we're Gen Xers. We grew up like you go to one doctor, you get one opinion. You go to the next doctor, you get a second opinion. Maybe get a third or fourth, of course. And I didn't see anyone else speaking out with just another option as to how to understand what we were experiencing as a globe. And then Dr. Kory and some other dissident docs came across my path. And I remember so viscerally like, thank God there are professionals. I'm not a doctor. I don't know about viruses. I was so thankful that there were other professionals willing to take a stand in what was insanely hostile
territory at that time, which I'd never seen either. Like a doctor could have an opinion, another one would be like, no, I mean, I'm a researcher, I'm a psychologist. So you have one lab doing the research here. They come to this conclusion. The other lab's like, that's crap. We interpret your results in an entirely different way. Here's our theory. That was so normal. And all of a sudden it wasn't normal. And I'm sure you went through the same, like, what is actually, it was so surreal. I didn't even know how to make sense of it. So finding Dr. Corey's work, of course, your book that you co-wrote with him. And then, of course, that led me to your Substack, where you take a stance and an approach that is so needed in these, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say dark times, but you're very witty. You have been a comedic writer. You've been a radio personality. Your resume perfectly positioned you to be the one to be like, hi, no. And we're going to poke fun at all of this.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm the one to do it with my tinfoil hat, which then, again, just to get your other book that's related to COVID out, which I love the title so much, Yankee Doodle Soup for the Fringy Tinfoil Hat Wearing Conspiracy Theorist Soul. And obviously a play on the chicken soup for the soul, all that kind of stuff. But okay, that was a long, long way for me to tell how I met you. You tell us how you came into this space, because you really have gone through a kind of a career pivot at this point.
You could call it that. Yeah. I think it's a career 180 times infinity. Yeah. Like you said, I was a humor writer. I used to call myself a sit-down comedian, right? Like I wrote funny books. I wrote funny articles. I worked on staff in magazines in New York for many years. And then I went freelance, and then I started writing books. And, in publishing, most writers are like a J.K. Rowling, they pick a genre and they stick with it.
Sure.
That was never me. I wrote fiction, nonfiction, memoir, children's books, middle grade. But the common theme in everything I wrote was always humor. It had to be funny. I started writing children's picture books for HarperCollins and Random House because I had kids, and kids' picture books sucked. So I was like, I got to write something that's fun for the parent to read, because when I get to pick the book, I'm like, it's always the same two, like the two books that I liked. So I was like, you can get some adult humor in there that only adults might get, but it's still funny for the kids. And so that was kind of my thing. Never, not ever did I blog, write, or even talk publicly about politics, about, elections, about, like I said in one of my posts, I was like, not only was I not interested in exposing the seedy underbelly of our governmental agencies, that phrase never even left my fingertips. I was like, I was politically agnostic. I voted in presidential elections only. I'm embarrassed to say I am like vote local now hardcore, but I am I'm an entirely different person than I was 5 years ago. Right. Like I was blissfully If you had held a gun to my head and said, what does the CDC exist for? I would have said to protect us and to test our drugs and to make sure that everything we get is safe. Right. If you asked me what 9/11 was, I would have said it was a vicious exterior attack on our country. And again, that's something else I've written about, is the contagion of conspiracy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like COVID, as soon as you realize what COVID was, the big, fat, deadly lie that COVID was on every level, when you, and it's a hard pill to swallow, right? It's a hard pill to swallow to go, wait a minute, are governments trying to kill us for money and for power and for control? And when you accept that, because there's no other answer, when you go down that rabbit hole, then you go, anything's possible. Any level of deceit and evil is possible, right?
Oh.
I know. We're going to be here for a year. I'm going to wait. I got to DoorDash some food because we're going to be here for a long time.
Here for all of it. I want to underscore, because this program really is about, my brother and I, who you listen to a couple, so thank you so much. We're both, I'm a psychologist. He's a therapist. This has been our field for 30 years, but you said something that I resonate with so strongly. I'm an entirely different person than I was 5 years ago. And things that you just didn't even care about, like you didn't have any energy about them, all of a sudden are now massively focal points in your world. They are the things that, and those of us in this dissident space, it's like those funny memes where like, I'm going to go to the dinner party today and I'm just going to talk about nothing. And then it's like, everyone's like, what's going on with the moonwalk? And you're like, right? So it's like, we've all just the dissident community, and this is where we are. I agree. I feel like a very different person. Part of that has been grieving the life I thought I lived as an American. I thought I was free, Jenna. Didn't you think you were free? I mean, we're Gen Xers.
100%.
We
Best country in the world.
Oh my gosh. And we're free. We can say whatever we want. Yeah. We can do whatever. And I'm like, well, that was a big illusion. And so when you have your worldview, and that's not an outsized term to you. My entire worldview has altered. So where does that leave me with my own personal understanding of myself, my identity, my relationships, which I want to get to too. So again, because we're hitting that 5-year mark, I know you recently, I think you were on vacation and you posted some posts from a couple of years ago. And there was one, you were going back and forth with a writer who you formerly really respected. I think she was a journalist or something, and you formerly really respected her work. And you were trying to go back and forth. So this leads me to another element of all of this. You're a different person. You see the world differently. The things you want to talk about and explore and consider as a critical thinker, those are different too. And then it does affect your interactions with people, loved ones close to you, of course, depending on how COVIDian they got. And then also other colleagues and professional people that you maybe weren't personally close to, but you had an understanding or respect for them and their work. So where are you with all that? Take it from there, Jenna.
Well, yeah, I mean, my social and professional life imploded. Like I was basically the Pierre Corey of the publishing world. I mean, I come from New York and LA. Okay. That's where my entire career, that's where I spent my entire career. Until I moved to Texas 5 years ago, and I was already completely independent. But I worked at, magazines and publishing in the two most liberal cities in the country, right?
And the move to Texas was to escape. I mean, just like many people have done, Joe Rogan type situation.
We got out a little bit earlier. It was before COVID. We moved in 2018. I'm a native New Yorker. I was raised in Florida. I moved to California because I wanted to, because it was beautiful and great weather, and I was tired of New York. Right. And then I met my husband, who was a born and raised Californian, so I was never leaving. And then it was like wildfire, mudslide. I feel like God's telling us something, babe, and we're not listening. And my husband was really reticent to leave. And my daughters were in 8th and 10th grade, mother of the year. Like, let's go to a new high school. That'll be amazing, But I mean, to this day, they're just turned 20 this week and about to turn 22. And they will tell me, and by the way, they're both totally on my team, but we're not in early COVID. We'll get back to that.
Oh, yes.
No,
write that down. Make sure.
Wackadoodle. But I'm veering all over the place. Now they're both
it's impossible not to. It's impossible not to. And we're going to track this. Yeah.
Okay. But to answer your question, so I started, and again, we lived on a different planet 5 years ago. I would post little things on Facebook, right? So I am inherently skeptical. That is my nature. I'm also relentlessly optimistic. I have said my whole life, and sometimes I'm hesitant to say this because I know many, many, many people personally who suffer extreme depression, and I am the opposite of that. I can't help it. I'm hardwired to be glass overflowing. I'm always going to find the silver lining. I am kittens and sunshine. I'm literally a cat lady. Like I want happy when my daughter, we're all voracious readers in my family, and my daughters will say, Mom, you have to read this book. Nobody dies. No animals are because they know I'm going to go to anybody die. I don't want to read if anybody dies. I don't want to read it. I don't want to read it. Why? I want to bring light and love and happiness into the world. There's not enough of that. That's why I was put on this earth. I know that unequivocally. So I start putting out little things. And the first few things I put out was like, hey, I'm doing a lot of like digging and research. And it looks like this ivermectin thing might be really, effective. Because this was when we were all bleaching our groceries, right? We were like, we had lost our freaking minds. People that I knew, like you said, not random Facebook friends, because I had thousands of those because I was a known author. Right. People that I worked with, that I shared an office with, were like, oh my God, you selfish anti-vax troll. I hope when you get COVID, you stay home and die and don't even think about taking a hospital bed from somebody who did the right thing. Mm-hmm. And so from day one, I was like, wait. So the first long form thing I posted was on my blog, my jennamccarthy.com blog, back when we used to have blogs. Mm-hmm. And the title of the piece was, I will drive. And I made an analogy. It was a COVID analogy. It was, if somebody told you, hey, Karen, listen, my grandmother is 99 years old and she cannot see a thing. And also sometimes she has like fainting spells. Anyways, she wants to drive around town tomorrow. So could you stay home? I'm trying to get all the other cars to stay off the road so that she can just go out there and be safe.
Oh my gosh.
You would go, call me crazy. Maybe grandma should stay home, right? So it was an analogy about why are we locking up healthy people? We don't lock up healthy people. That's not what we do. We never have. This is insane. And people were like, oh my God, you are unblock, unfriend, or not block, unfriend. Yeah. You're dead to me. And I'm like, wait, literally all I've done is express rational thought. Yes, it doesn't align with what you're hearing on CNN, but it's a thought. We could have a conversation about it. I didn't block a single person. I was like, you can disagree, come to my page, disagree with me, or, argue with me. And there was no, it was the attack the person, not the argument. I was just bad. They were morally superior. They were doing the right things. And I was a selfish troll. That's right. And again, like when you spend, and I would, my most frequent comment was, where'd you get your medical degree again? Okay. Jenna, where'd you get your medical degree? Mm-hmm. Where did you study virology? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I posted actually it was I can't remember if it was Peter McCullough or Pierre Corey, but I posted one of the early Joe Rogan things on Facebook.
Yes.
I was a dumb, fake blonde, which I am. I'm not dumb, but I'm a fake blonde. Getting her medical advice from a mixed martial artist. And I'm like, you guys, you think Rachel Maddow is an expert on anything? She's the vehicle. She's the source. Joe Rogan is interviewing the most published cardiologist in the world. How can you say Joe Rogan is a meathead? Maybe he is, but he's inquisitive, he's smart, and he's talking to the right people. So I had like a 10-minute hate fest on Facebook. I would get, I'm not exaggerating, 700 nasty comments. I'd get a slew of, unfollows and blocks. And then all of a sudden I would post something, crickets. Yeah. And I'm like, did everybody who hates me unfollow me? And also I know that there's a lot of them. They're all on Facebook that same day. So I was one of the completely shadow banned. Yeah. Nobody would see my post. You would have to go to Facebook / the real Jenna McCarthy to see anything that I posted. Yeah. People were even texting me going, did you quit Facebook? I haven't seen your stuff forever. Right. I'm like, no, it's there, but the algorithms are at work. Mm-hmm. I got my Instagram taken down overnight, no question, no recourse. Mm-hmm. It said, do you want to petition this? I said, yes. And it basically said, too bad. And that was it. So all the people that I was following that I didn't remember, like Asim Malhotra's lifestyle medicine doctor. I'm like, how do I find it? Oh, how do I find them? I felt so crazy, So then I was on Telegram and I joined Substack and I started finding my people again and following them. And, so that was kind of how I guess broke. Well, that wasn't how I broke into this world. I broke into this world because I have opinions, a lot of them. Like my husband always says, at least we never have to wonder what you think. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. I'll tell you before you ask. I'll save you the trouble. So I'll circle this back. So I was following the FLCCC. That's the organization that Pierre started with Paul Merrick, Dr. Paul Merrick, who's also amazing. And I just loved them. And in my mind, Pierre was like, really, I mean, you want to talk about fangirling? Like I was I'm so geeked out. Like to even think that I might know him. He was Dr. Corey, blah, blah, blah. So one day the FLCCC posted that they were looking for writers. I misunderstood and I thought it was just freelance writers, but they were looking for a staff position. But I sent them a bunch of my work. And then they were like, oh, it's a staff position. And I was like, no worries. I'm not moving anywhere, but hi, love you guys.
Yeah.
And then, 6 or 7 months later, they reached back out and said, hey, we're doing really well with sponsorships. And, we have a little bit of a budget and we'd love for you to write a column for us. We love your humor. We think that, your voice could be really powerful in reaching what they were calling the movable middle, right? We can all bark into my echo chamber loves me. People who already think like I do, they love me. But it's reaching the people who are still wearing masks alone in their cars. Like, how do you get them and, a spoonful of sugar, as they say. So I started writing for them. And in really the most pivotal moment of my career, Pierre, Dr. Corey, one of the things that I wrote for them, he loved, and he texted me. He got my phone number and he texted me, is it okay if he restacked it? And I was like excuse me. Really? Like, really? So I had a Substack account only so I could read other people. And I hadn't even written a word yet, Karen. The day he restacked that, it was like, just a scrolling new subscriber. And I'm like, oh, people want to read my stuff. That's kind of amazing.
I better write something.
I started Substacking, and then even more insanely, because I have the total patronage model. It's just free. I don't put anything behind a paywall, and at the bottom of every one, it's like, this is a reader supported stack, feel free to support me if you'd like. Never in a million years would I think that anybody, you're walking down the street and it's like, these flowers are free, but if you'd like to leave money in the tip jar, like, no, they're good. They're free. I started getting paid subscribers before I was writing. Like, it was absolutely crazy. So, I was like, this is what I was here to do. I know. And at first, even Pierre was like, I was like, and his Substack was blowing up, and he's like, you got to get on there. You got to do it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm literally a sit-down comedian. You're sharing life-saving information. Of course you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I'm a comic. Like, do people really, he's like, Jenna, people need what you do more than ever right now. Please, please, please. You're the funniest person I know. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And then, 5 minutes later, I'm like, I have thousands of people following me. It was crazy. It was like amazing. So, my love language is words of affirmation. I always tell everybody who is in my circle, feed me and tell me I'm pretty. And by pretty, I don't mean physically, but like, tell me I'm smart, tell me I'm funny. I can build my own stuff. I don't need presents. I like to pick up my own stuff, but feed me and tell me I'm pretty, and we're going to get along forever.
Okay. I have so many questions about that. First off, I want to just clarify. So despite your success in your prior life, and I do think for many of us, if there was pre-COVID life and then there's reality as we're still trying to unpack it and feel like we're in these caves of deception. I don't think that's, again, hyperbolic. I think we're just trying to feel our way. All of us, certainly in the dissident movement. So you feel really like your prior life was great. You loved it. Cool. But this was really where you are right now is what you were born to do.
The week before the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I've written a few screenplays, and one of my books that I wrote a long time ago, ABC bought the film rights and they were developing it for a sitcom, and that never happened. So I decided, like, I'm kind of that person. Like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. I just need to learn how to do it. So I learned screenwriting on my own. I didn't take a course or anything. And I wrote a screenplay and I submitted it to a film festival, and it won. Oh. And it's a rom-com, right? Again, this is pre-COVID Jenna, old Jenna, just writing funny stuff, but it's like, it's kind of funny and poignant, and it'll make you laugh, whatever. And through that, I met these two producers. One of them is in Hollywood, and the other one is, he's Jack Nicholson's son, by the way. Oh. And the other one is the guy who produced the Kissing Booth movies. And they were Andrew Cole-Bulgin is his name. He's a comics entertainment. He's in London, but he was like, I need to meet you. And I went to LA and he's like, I want to do something with this. The film festival was literally like February, 27th. Right. And then COVID hits and, we're still like going back and forth. And they're like, here's how we want to kind of shape this a little bit. But we think they picked my script, by the way, to do a live table read and brought in actors at the film festival. And they acted out my movie. It was so amazing. And, in my head, Hollywood was still like, that would be the pinnacle. Every author wants their book made into a movie. And I'd come close and nothing had ever happened. And I didn't even write this book. I wrote it, originally as a screenplay. And a lot of times they say, even if you want to sell a screenplay, you've got to write the book version of it, which, it's time consuming, right? And I'm like, here I have these two, they're not nobodies, right? These two red hot producers. I mean, as soon as I came out talking about what I was doing, like Andrew and I had kind of become friends, texting all the time. He was like, wow, like, commenting on like my Instagram posts and stuff. And then within a month it was, hey guys, anything going on? Crickets. And again, like now, of course I would still love, if we lived in that different world, I would love something I wrote to be made into a movie, but do I want anything to do with Hollywood, with that dirty, despicable, vile industry? I mean, was that dodging the biggest bullet ever happened, right? Like, I could have moved my kids there and they could have been raised in that Hollywood world. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that. Like, I am so gratified and satisfied by what I'm doing now. And, we talked about the friends and we talk about the friends that we lost. Yeah. Is it Maya Angelou who said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time? Like, if we can't disagree about the benefits of masks, which a very large Kirkland study showed don't do anything. If we can't agree on that, even though you're totally wrong, if we can't agree to disagree, then we can't be friends. Like I have said from the beginning of the pandemic, like never in my life have I had political equivalents on my bingo card. Yeah. I have friends of, who are apolitical, raging liberals, tea partiers. Your religion didn't matter. Your sexual orientation didn't matter. I don't care who you're doing it with. I don't want to hear about it. That's as far as I care about your sexual orientation. But suddenly it was them versus us. And you couldn't disagree. What was
because
that?
You're selfish and you want to kill people with your freedom. This isn't about your freedom.
Screw your freedom.
Yeah, right.
That's what Arnold Schwarzenegger said.
Oh, yeah. He said, I'm like, oh, really? Austria boy? You come here to enjoy our freedom and become a millionaire off our industry and screw our freedom? Oh, that was rich. And it was also from the president of the United States that it was a pandemic of the unvaccinated. So they're hearing this, Jenna. So it's our fault for not getting vaccinated, that this whole thing is carrying on, even though everyone knows, anyone who studied any of this would say you never do a mass vaccination campaign in the midst of a pandemic, because all it's going to do is cause the virus to morph into another variation, which it did. And thank goodness Omicron was less deadly, but the whole thing was
like, where did rational thinking go, right? Like,
that's
here's an example.
My question.
And I hope she doesn't listen to this podcast because it's a very dear friend who is on the entire opposite side. We are still friends, but we don't connect the way we used to.
Because there's so many topics you can't talk about.
No, let me tell you a ridiculous story. Every year, she lives near my sister on the East Coast, like 2 hours away. So we always fly into where she lives, spend 2 or 3 days with her, then go to my sister. My kids grew up with her kids. I know my husband and I love her and her husband equally. So we were doing our annual trip. It's the first year in COVID. And I was planning it. And I said, hey, these are the dates I'm looking at. And they have like your dream house, and we always stay with them. And so her texting was kind of weird. Like, let me talk to Paul. And I'm like, okay. And she wrote back and she was like, I have to ask this. Are you guys still not vaccinated? And I said, we are forever not vaccinated. We will never, not ever be vaccinated. Right. And she was like, well, we'd still love, we talked about it and we'd still love to see you, but you can't stay at our house and we can only meet in public wearing masks. And I said, can I just ask you a question? I'm not trying to be antagonistic or inflammatory. Can I just ask a question? You are vaccinated.
Right.
So what does it matter if I'm not vaccinated? I mean, this was before we even knew that the vaccine didn't protect you, but
right.
This was when they were telling us that it did. And she was like, well, it's just, my parents are older and I can't take any risks. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So the trip is coming. I am not making this up. I mean, if she's listening to this, at least she'll know that I am not a liar. I said, okay, we're going to stay in a hotel. We're just going to stay the one night. We're not going to stay there forever, but let's go out to dinner. Where would you like to go? She picked a place and she said, I actually want to show you our new house. So I want you guys to come over for a drink. We have a really nice covered patio. Just be sure to wear your masks. Okay. So we have to find masks at this point because we don't wear them. So we find masks and we go to their house and we hug with our masks and we get a tour of the house with our masks on. And then we proceed to go outside to the covered, enclosed on 3 sides patios where we take off our masks.
Right.
And talk for an hour over drinks. And now we're going to go to the restaurant where we take separate cars. And we walk to the restaurant with our masks on and proceed to sit down as close as my face is to yours on this screen and take off our masks. Right. And I go, okay, it's a delusion. It is it's literally if you've, and I get it. You were propagandized. I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
I did believe the CDC and the FDA for many, many years. I did drag my family kicking and screaming to get their annual flu shots. Yeah. I did. So I get it. But now it's almost embarrassing, really. It's it's embarrassing.
So to that point, because this is a question I ask every dissident who I can get a hold of and ask. You said something that you've always been skeptical. You and I shared via email that I came the anti-pharma route very honestly because of my father, who was a college professor and just a dissident by nature, like a lot of college professors in the 70s and 80s. They were the rabble
not now, but back
not
then.
now. Exactly, right? So this is this whole shift of alignment of all the things, which we can get into in a minute. But he had told me years ago, and the audience knows this because I've shared this many times, because it's just, I don't understand how to understand, which is my question for you. All I can say is that when I remember distinctly sitting there watching the propaganda on TV, because even the conservative channels were full, all in. And I remember it and they're like, well, we're going to warp speed this vaccine. And I look at Dan, my husband, I was like, well, I'm not taking that.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not? I was like, warp speed? Yeah. A drug of any sort? And so he knew, and being a psychologist, I was very wary when I first got my master's in clinical psych. So I'm a brand new therapist, and it's right around early 90s when Prozac, the wonder drug. And I come home and I'm like, Dad, there's this new miracle drug. It's going to cure depression. He's like, mm-hmm. So right away, I just couldn't ever get on board. So I had that instilled in me from my father. Praise God. Thank God. Yes. So I know why I was able to see something that other people couldn't. And I don't mean that, that's not arrogance. It's just, I was raised. It's like the way I have green eyes from my green-eyed mother or my blue-eyed father. I was just genetically wired because of that upbringing. You feel like you were always a bit skeptical with your sunny optimism. Also, there was this underbelly of I have questions. Why do you think, Jenna, that some people who I would say are 30 IQ points smarter than me, who are maybe even less the type, I'm kind of a people pleaser. I'm the youngest child. So I'm used to kind of going along to get along in some cases. But there are certain domains where I'm like, absolutely not. Why do you think you were able to see what was actually happening and not know the full picture? Of course, none of us did, but you started at least asking those questions and doing some research. Why do you think people, our peers, who we would have thought would have approached this entire psyop with the same skepticism and concern, why do you think that they didn't? What's your thought?
I mean, do you have the same question? The world's most profound answer to that question. And I don't.
Yeah.
I literally don't, because like I said, It was, no, when I say I'm a born skeptic, it's like, is that really real? Is that, the whole truth? But by the same token, I was also like, here's the analogy that I give. Like I said, I can learn anything. I could learn how to change the oil in my car. I don't want to. I could go to medical school. I don't want to. I got a doctor for that. You went to medical school. You know way more than I do about this stuff. At some point, because I'm also a control freak, right? You got to go, what are the things that I can give up control? And certainly my children's health, I handed it over on a platter. In the day they were born in the hospital, take them away, go do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Was I supposed to go to medical school before I had kids? I missed that. I didn't have time. Sorry. I had a career and then I got pregnant. My bad. So I genuinely don't know. But like when I started writing about the things I was writing about, I had this incredibly narcissistic, misguided belief that my way with words could enlighten people, right? If I just let them know, they were being lied to and pointed it out with receipts. If I showed them, hey, look, there's like when ivermectin was being distributed across Uttar Pradesh in India, and they had 0 cases and 0 deaths. If people knew what I knew, they would like not get their families injected with this experimental poison, and they wouldn't be wearing a stupid mask alone in their car, right? They would be breathing not bacterial scraps of fabric that were, giving them lung infections. They would not be destroying their child's, life basically, and their ability to communicate. And I mean, and instead it was vitriol, hatred, anger, disgust. And, I had one of my dear, dear friends back in California call me one day and she said, I have to laugh, all hyper vaccinated, and all of her kids couldn't wait, like first in line to get her kids vaccinated. She was like, I have to tell you something. And I was like, okay. She works at like a tech company in Santa Barbara. She said, I was in the break room the other day and there were 2 people that I don't even know that were talking about some gal who used to live in Santa Barbara who has just gone off the rails, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Jenna, it was you. And I was like, wait, let me see. Of caring less, could I? No. Could I care less if 2 strangers at your stupid company that I've never met, maybe I have, maybe they were old friends of mine, I don't know. I don't care. Like I have information. I am going to share it. I might save one life. Like I'm not like painting myself as some sort of hero, but this literally was life-saving information. And I do have friends. One in particular whose son is 17 now, is a basketball phenom and was already getting scouted at like 13 years old to go, play for these clubs where the big league, like he will be, LeBron James, or I'm not sure if that's the right sport, but he'll be a famous baller. And in order to go to this one school, and she and her husband were already vaccinated, but they were going to kind of wait on the kids. And in her defense, they were only vaccinated because her mother has cancer and they thought they were going to protect mom. So fine. But she was like, if he wants to go to this school, and it's a really, really good school with the amazing coaches and the trainers. And she's like, would you let him do it? And I said, I would throw my body in front of his and drag the 2 of us to the bottom of the sea before I would let him do that. And I mean, he was the myocarditis target group, an athlete, like a hardcore trainer. This kid trained 6 hours a day minimum. Are you crying?
I got emotional.
And she texts me all the time. I'm like covered in chills. She texts me all the time. She's like, you saved my son's life. Like, I know it unequivocally. You saved my son's life. Because I would have done that. I would have done it.
Yeah.
And he was so mad. And even her husband, who's, mostly on our team, was like, dude, all the other kids are doing it. Like, and I had that with my kids too. Boy, my youngest daughter is a model. She signed with an agency right before COVID, and they started doing castings virtually. Karen, my daughter couldn't go on a virtual casting without being vaccinated. And then, and this is the part that I probably should, I'm going to be vague about this, but you'll probably figure it out. I said, well, what if we could, make them think that you were? How about that? I got a guy. I'll just leave it at that. I got a guy. I had to put my daughter in therapy over that conversation because she said to me, Mom, you raised me that I couldn't do anything to disappoint you but lie. Like if I killed somebody, but I admitted it, you could forgive me. If I stole something and I came and told you, you could forgive me. But if I lied about it, the trust that I was born, I would tell them that you were born with my trust and you'll have it till the day you die, until you break it. And then you can't get it back. You'll never get it back in its entirety. A piece will be gone. You can work really hard, but just don't break my trust, because it's everything, right? I will help you bury the body, but you got to be honest with me about how it happened. Like that. I mean, that was my most important parenting thing. And she was broken. She was like, you're telling me to lie.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, and she was shaking and she was like, Mom, I don't understand. Like everybody I know is vaccinated. All the parents are vaccinated. Like why, how is it? How am I supposed to accept the fact that my mom, who's a humorist, knows more than every doctor, every news station, I'm like, well, let's get you a therapist. Let's get I can't answer that. You just have to trust me.
How did you find an unjabbed therapist?
I called every single one. Well, I have a therapist friend who I know is on my team. So I called her. She doesn't work with kids though. And she was like, all right, let me do some digging. And she said, here are some people that I think, but here's what I would do. She's like, I would just call them and say, here's my biggest issue. We're not vaccinated. My daughter's having a thing. I need to know that she's not going to go in there and your response is going to be, you don't need your mom's permission. You're 7,
totally.
So I interviewed, I only interviewed 2. And the second one was like, oh girl, you are speaking my language. I'm not vaccinated. And my husband works in Hollywood and he's on a religious exemption. And I'm like, she still sees her. It's been 4.5 years. She lives in Korea now because she's modeling there. But they do Zoom calls every other week because she's like, Natalie saved my life. Yeah. And I mean, that's like your biggest parenting fail ever. Like I all I can say to you, honey, is, you know, in your heart that I love you more than anything on the planet. All these other people, they're your really good friends and they love you, but nobody loves you more than me. I'm not going to, I'm the one that will throw myself in front of the train.
Right.
You know that. And I will. And I am. So, just, you have to trust me. And it's hard and scary. And, I just said, I want you to have somebody to talk to about this. I want you, you can say anything to me. You can say, I think you're crazy. You can say, I hate you. I hate you. You can say that to me. I hate you right now, Mom, for what you're doing. Because she was missing out on jobs. She was, she couldn't do anything.
Right.
Even here in Austin, you couldn't go to a concert.
Yeah.
And all of her friends could.
Mm-hmm.
And she chose, she's like, I'm not going to lie, which was really, really hard, because even when they went back to school, at first they said, if you're unvaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. So scarlet letter. Yeah. Scarlet letter. It was insane. Right. It was insane. No, I'm sorry. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. Sorry.
No, I know what you meant. I know what you meant.
It's been, but even for this Pollyanna, and I say this as somebody, the hospital killed my aunt. With remdesivir, an event. She didn't even have COVID when she went into the hospital. I lost friends. I lost jobs. I lost, all the things. My kids doubted me. My husband and I were fighting constantly because he was like, and he's never even had a MMR shot. He was grew up completely unvaccinated and would get the flu shots. Yep. His family didn't believe in it. They were straight off the boat from Portugal.
Amazing. And ahead of their time, actually.
Right. So his dad was a single dad too. So he might've just not even had the bandwidth to go, pediatricians. We don't do preventive. We're fine. We're not going to the doctor. I don't know. But even my husband was like, I don't know, Jenna, if she can't work, and I'm like, hey, she double hockey sticks to the no, all the no. We got in some of our biggest marital spats ever with, and this is what I said to him at one point, and then I'll stop talking. I swear.
No. Mm-mm. I wanted to go this direction anyway.
We kind of have this marital thing where I always want change and he always wants homeostasis. That's it. I want to move. I want to buy something. I want to go somewhere. And he's like, he's very resistant to change of any kind. And I said, in our entire marriage, 99% of things default to you. It defaults to you. I want to take this trip. You don't want to spend the money. We don't. I want to move. It's too stressful for you. We don't. I said, I'm here to tell you that I will give up this marriage if this is one of those things that will default to you. This time, it's going to default to me. Like, I don't fight all the other things. I don't. This is defaulting to me. We're not going to say, well, Jenna doesn't want to, but I want to, so we're going to. That's not happening. That's not happening. Because, I mean, this is the most important. My kids are, what is more important than your kids? Right. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And it's life or death. And the people didn't understand that. And they saw it the exact opposite. You and I are going, that is not a safe product. mRNA has never been used on humans. The rat trials, bunnies, rats, they're dying. I mean, obviously the Pfizer clinical trials were botched. They removed the control group after time. Like, it was just such an absolute clown show. And yet framed in science, which we must trust. And you crazy whack job, you don't trust science.
The science.
Yeah.
Trust the science. I'm the science.
Right, exactly. But getting back to marriage, I've thought about that many times over the last 5 years. If Dan had fought me, and it sounds like your husband did, so you had to really, I mean, that had to be a line in the same, like, this is it. Like, and you never, when you got married all those years ago, you never thought one of these days there's going to be some psyop with a fake virus or real virus, I don't know, a bioweapon, whatever the heck it was.
Right.
If it was anything other than the flu, at this point, I don't even know if it was anything other than the flu. Whatever.
It wasn't. I don't even
know. Like, the flu dropped off. No one, there's no flu, whatever.
I have one of my closest friends is exactly like us. I mean, almost even more so. I mean, like, every rabbit hole, like,
is that
absolutely
possible?
rabid about it. No, she has 2 kids. One of them got vaccinated behind her back. The other one, she doesn't think, but she's not allowed to talk about it in her house. Her husband thinks she's crazy and tells her this. And she's very religious, so she would never, ever get a divorce, period. End of story. She just won't. Because I would, when she asked me what I would do, I'm like, baby, I would have been gone 4 years ago. I don't know what to tell you. Like, he tells her to her face, you're crazy. And so what she says to me, which is the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life, like, I'll go, how are things with your husband?
Yeah.
And she'll say, well, it's fine if I live in my fake life. I just can't talk about anything that's important to me. And I'm like, that is death to me. That is worse than death. Not being able to be authentic is worse than death. I couldn't do it. I couldn't pretend to like and respect you. Right. Because, I mean, marriage is built on respect, right?
Absolutely. And intimacy, which is talking about the things that matter to you.
Right. Nope. She's literally can't bring up the topic. She can't even bring up any of the vaccines. So her child, I'm trying not to give away any, identifying details. Her child who got, vaccinated, and by the way, has had nothing but issues. He has peripheral neuropathy. He's had all sorts of stuff. Has 2 young children, and they're full steam ahead with the full vaccine schedule. And she has said, my friend, like, I will homeschool them. Please, will you just read? Will you read? Just watch just this one thing. And they're like, if you bring up vaccines again, you will not see your grandchildren. So she has to sit by and just let them do what they're going to do. And by the way, she's a medical professional. Medical professional.
So she actually does have, where'd you go to med school? Where'd you get your medical training? She actually has those bona fides, huh?
Yep, she does. And she exited the system after 35 years because of seeing what was happening.
As did anyone with an ounce, shred of integrity at this point.
Yeah. I know. I mean, it's
overwhelming at times.
It is.
Which is why just talking with you is so therapeutic.
Jenna and I had plenty to say, obviously, so we're going to chop this episode up into 2 parts to make sure it's a little bit more bite-sized and manageable. So join us next episode for part 2 of my conversation with Jenna McCarthy, author of, with Dr. Pierre Corey, The War on Ivermectin. Thank you, as always, for joining us. And until next time, make it a great week.
Love and Life with Dr. Karen and Pastor Elliott is produced by Tim May and executive producer Dr. Karen Anderson-Abel. For more information about Love and Life, please go to loveandlifemedia.com.